Hello, welcome to another Literature Revision Systems lesson to prepare you for AQA Love and Relationships Poetry Cluster. This time we're going to focus on the family love poems. I've shared a number of videos to prepare you for the poems that I group under the thematic heading of the romantic love, but this one's now focused on the family love. And between you and me, I think if you're needing to really prioritise revision, i.e. if you've left it quite late, I think the family poem is possibly more likely to come up this year. Based on probability, there have been more questions using the romantic poetry from the 15 poems in the cluster than there have been using family poems. So, if you really want to gamble and focus your revision, I would focus on some family poems, and I'm taking as a key poem Mother Any Distance by Simon Armitage. If you've looked at the previous videos, you'll realise that I take one key poem, a home poem if you will, and then compare the other poems to that, so that you're reinforcing your learning of the key knowledge about the home poem each time you prepare and revise the other poems. So for the family relationships poetry, I'm going to look at Mother Any Distance and link that then to each of the other poems that could be grouped under that thematic heading of family relationships. So Mother Any Distance, it's a sonnet form, but it's an extended sonnet form. So the sonnet form's classically used for a romantic love poetry, but here Armitage is developing that form to suggest that he's moving away from his mother's love, from his intimacy or close love of his mother, moving on to become independent. The poem's about growing up, isn't it? Leaving home and growing up. Or the metaphor of leaving home is used to symbolise becoming independent. The poem was published in Book of Matches. That was an anthology of poetry or a collection of poetry that is thematically linked to ideas of growing up, family relationships. So the poem itself: Mother, any distance greater than a single span requires a second pair of hands. You come to help me measure windows, palmets, doors, the acres of the walls, the prairies of the floors. You at the zero end, me with the spool of tape, recording length, reporting meters, centimetres, back to base, then leaving up the stairs, the lines still feeding out, unreeling years between us, anchor, kite. I spacewalk through the empty bedrooms, climb the ladder to the loft, to breaking point, where something has to give. 2 floors below, your fingertips still pinch, the last 100th of an inch. I reach towards a hatch that opens on the endless sky to fall or fly. So a summary of the content: the speaker's mother helps him measure his new home to prepare for moving in, furniture and fittings. And I'm sorry, I forgot the apostrophe there. Woe is me. So this symbolises the close relationship of mother and son and how he is moving on towards independence and adulthood. The poem ends with metaphors that consider whether he will succeed or fail without her support. So as always, we're looking at 3 key areas: the beginning, middle and end of the poem, and I've highlighted those in yellow, blue and green, 1, 2 and 3, and we'll go through now the key ideas that I'd like you to explore in relation to these quotations. So ideally you can pause the video and make notes in your anthology as I explain these ideas. So the first of all, acres and prairies. Those are the 2 key words. So if you want to just minimize your memorization, acres and prairies are the words that work here. They're the metaphors. It's literally describing the emptiness of the new house and how big that empty house feels. But there's also a sense there in that huge scale, that grandiose scale of the endless sky. That's a link to a line in the last verse, isn't it? And it's good to blend that in to show that you, or to imply that you understand how those metaphors are working throughout the poem. So it's the endless sky of the future, that sense of the big wide world of opportunity that exists for young people, hopefully. So it's a positive connotation of opportunities to explore in life, but as always, it's good to explore alternative interpretations. So there might also be a sense of isolation in that big open space, which might suggest the vulnerability a young person could feel as they begin their life by themselves without their parental or mother support. So that's the first paragraph. The middle part of the analysis focuses on these kind of motifs, or these symbols of the anchor and kite metaphors. The anchor obviously represents the mother, and it suggests the stability that, like an anchor anchors a ship. It suggests how the mother is a stable influence and a security for the child. You could also then look at the negative connotation, perhaps, that there might also be a sense that a child could feel held back by their parent or by their mother. So a sense of being obstructed or hindered in your attempts to break out or become free or independent. The kite represents the child. I mean, it's a toy, isn't it, to an extent? So it's a youthful kind of image. And the kite, as it flies in the sky, that suggests the child's desire for freedom and fun. But again, with a negative connotation, you could explore the idea that as a kite could be blown off course and broken, so a child could be, or a young person is fragile. They can be led astray, or things can go wrong in their lives. The fact that Armitage uses these fragmented one-word sentences, and the end of the end-stopped verse, that line with a full stop at the end of kite, it emphasises these words, gives them a real symbolic, or even totemic, you could use that word, totemic status. Iconic is another word you could use, perhaps. The roles of mother and son, or mother and child, are irreversible, they're definite. We could link that then to and develop that explanation by linking it to the idea that where the mother's holding on to the tape measure. Armitage mentions this, doesn't he, when he explores this poem, and there's a video on YouTube where he explains how he got the idea of the poem, with his mother helping him measure out and she was still pinching onto the tape as he walked up the stairs. But that's a symbol, isn't it, for her difficulty in letting go of her son. And the fact that we've got the word pinch, her fingertips still pinch. Pinch has connotations of pain, doesn't it? So it could be pain of separation for the parent, or even for the child as well, leaving behind their mother, and perhaps feelings of guilt or not wanting to let go. So that's quite a detailed middle paragraph. And that's now move on to the final part of the analysis. And it's focusing on that very short last line. Fall or fly, very simple metaphors, aren't they, for failure or success in life. Fall being failure, fly being success. But ending on that metaphor for success, ending the poem with the word fly rather than fly or fall, it's fall or fly, that creates a very positive, hopeful, optimistic tone, doesn't it, that suggests that this young man will succeed, perhaps as a result of his mother's love and care. That short last line seems unfinished, and that suggests the new life has just begun, doesn't it? It's a simple point to make as well. And the fact that this is an extension to the sonnet form conveys that growing independence. We've got the sonnet up to line 14, end of sky, but now we've got this rhyming couplet that continues there with fly. And again, you could make the extra point of sky and fly. It creates this very open-ended, positive, optimistic feeling at the end. That's an idea just came to me. So, as always, we're using this petal structure that you may be using in your school. It's quite a common structure for analysis, where you point out the narrative context of the quotation you're going to use, that's the evidence. You use terminology, you must use terminology in literature analysis, otherwise you cannot climb the mark scheme. Then we analyse the method and develop our explanation, maybe linking to another quotation or idea, or indeed at the end to the other poem. So looking at that first analysis of acres and prairies, a paragraph using those key ideas in essay style might look like this. Armitage describes measuring out his new house with his mother to prepare for moving in. Acres of the walls, prairies of the floors. These metaphors literally describe the emptiness of the new house, but also imply the endless sky of the future, with both the positive connotation of opportunities to explore, but also the wide open spaces might suggest feelings of isolation and vulnerability that may be associated with the beginning of adult life. So that would be a very effective first paragraph of analysis on this poem. And just to point out to you that petal process, I've colour-coded that now. So you can see the evidence there in red, the quotations in red, the terminology. There's not very much in that one, just the word metaphors in blue. And we've got the analysis and then the development, the link rather, at the end, linking up to another point. So again, we'll follow this step-by-step process. And I tend to try to use a chart process to break down the analysis so that students can memorise the analysis step by step, box by box, so they have the whole paragraph internalised, really ready for the exam. So that would be the chart structure. So if we transpose that paragraph into that chart structure, we can see that's how it would be broken down. The same ideas, but you can learn them box by box at a time, one piece by piece, so to speak. So you develop the whole puzzle, the whole essay. Looking at the second point on anchor, kite, breaking point and still pinch, that would be perhaps written up as this. He uses metaphors to sum up their different roles in the relationship, anchor, kite. He uses fragmented sentences. Anchor has connotations of the security that a mother provides, but also might imply how a mother might hinder or weigh down their child by holding on to them. Whereas kite suggests both a youthful desire for freedom and fun, but also the fragility of a young person going out into the world alone. Just as a kite can be blown off course, a young person might go astray. The fragmented sentences and end-stop line emphasise these symbols and give them a totemic status. The roles are irreversible and definite. Even at breaking point, the parent may still pinch and hold on to their child. Armitage may be implying how difficult it is for a parent to let go of their child. So again, you could learn that step by step, and that would be a highly effective paragraph of analysis on this poem. The final point of Fall or Fly might read like this. Armitage creates an image of leaving a mother behind as the poem ends, to fall or fly. These are metaphors for failure or success in life, and ending on the metaphor for success in life, fly, leaves us with a positive, optimistic tone. The short last line seems unfinished, as if to suggest that the story of this new life away from mother has only just begun. It's also an extension to the basic sonnet form used by Armitage, a form synonymous with love poetry, to convey how he is moving on from his loving family to become independent. And then you'd move on to link this to the other poem. That's if you're following the basic structure. The whole essay might look like this, and that would be a good core essay. And then depending on how much time you've got, you can then learn more about the other poems you can link this to. So I think for a grade 7, and to be honest, I think it has attained higher grades, this structure. So I think, if you learnt a comparative introduction comparing Mother in a Distance to, say, Follower or Before You Were Mine, then you work through those 3 paragraphs I've just presented with a final link to the other poem you're going to be writing about. That would be enough, certainly to secure 7 and probably 8. I have developed more detailed structures, simply adding in a further point on the other poem to guarantee a grade 8. But to be honest, like I said, I think that basic structure is enough to secure a top grade. Okay, so that's the presentation on Mother in a Distance. I'll do a couple on Follower and Before You Were Mine as well, certainly over the next week, because I know the exam's coming up, isn't it? So this is for last minute revision. I think if you're going to focus, I'd focus on Mother in a Distance, Follower, and Before You Were Mine. But that's a gamble, but the choice is yours. So good luck, and thanks for watching this literature revision system lesson on Mother in a Distance.